Welcome to the channel. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at Community Report 43 for Workers and Resources Soviet Republic. This was released on the 25th of January 2022, if you're watching this in the future. This report consists of two parts. The first part is to do with the newest sewage system, which will be part of the next update, which is due for release in sometime in February. And the final part of the report gives us a little bit of an overview of the changes that have been made to the current update, which is in the beta test branch in Steam. And that aside, let's just get straight in and I'll just read through what the devs have got to say. Greetings, dear comrades of the Soviet Republic. Another week has passed. We come to you with another report as promised. This time we talk about sewage and we can discuss a few changes we made for the current crime and justice update. There were two updates for public testing last week, and the actual version available now is 0.8.69. Yeah, I've actually checked, and we are currently on the 0.869 version in the beta test branch. There may be more tweaks coming, and we hope that these changes will address some of the significant issues players need to face due to change in productivity and mechanics. So what we got here is a nice picture of a sewage plant. We'll come back to that in a minute. We'll just read what the devs have got to say as their first part. First, we want to introduce the basic sewage. It will work similarly to water, which means the buildings will be connected to a network through substations. You may think it's quite simplified that way, but you will have to face other challenges. So planning every connection would be just too much for gameplay perspective. Most important will be how the terrain will be sloped, because the sewage water will require a slight slope to flow down into the sewage plant, where it can be purified before you let it flow into nature, i.e. water. You will have significant use for measurement tool in this case, and you can already see how much complication this may add to those who want to continue with their existing saves. Yes, it's going to be fun. Adding the fact that you can use the slope to move the sewage is a pretty good way of doing things, actually, but it will mean that our town planning is going to have to be a bit careful. I think my also immediate observation with this is the fact that if we've got to dispose into rivers and the sea, that's going to make maps that have very limited water availability a bit more difficult to play on. So that is something we're going to need to think about. Now, before we look at the pictures, I just want to go down and read the next section. You will have option to build pumps if the terrain is not helpful, so you can build even if there will be the right slope to help sewage water to flow downhill. Then you'll have the options on how to treat sewage water. There will be a sewage plant to treat it before dumping it into nature, or you'll be able to release the sewage directly into nature without treating it. The water entering the sewage plant will have its own level of pollution, and the water exiting it will have its level of pollution. The more polluted the water dumped into nature will be more pollution it will cause. Now, my immediate thought about this, I'll just show you a picture of the actual sewage processing plant, is whether this will actually need chemicals. And I would assume that it would, because, I mean, that's how you clean. Well, you've got settlement tanks at the back here. The next picture, sorry about that. The next picture shows a water outforce. Now, so it means we'll be dumping water into lakes and rivers and the sea, I presume. Now, I'm assuming that there will be a pollution factor associated with that. Now, my main kind of observation at this point would be is whether the water will have a flow that will move the sewage away, or whether it would just be dumped in the water and just sit there. And if we look at the next picture, and this is obviously a sewage collection tank, it's interesting it's not connected to anything. It just sits in the middle. Not that I would guess that a sewage connection tank would actually catch fire, but that is something, and you can see it's actually going to have a cleanliness factor, and it's actually going to have an intermediate storage. So that's how the water is going to flow away. And we're just going to take another look at the other picture here. So this is an underground view of the network, which is on the right hand side. And what we've got here is the water flowing out to the stream, the sewage plant there, and you can see roughly in the background there the pipes connecting and the water flowing down towards the sewage plant. So when we're going to be planning sewage disposal, you're going to have to consider proximity of water and whether there's a slope in that direction. That's going to be interesting. Then if we look at the next one down, this looks like it's a close-up view. And this, oh, you can see in the bottom left-hand corner, I don't know if you guys can see, it's a bit faint, is the actual water delivery system. And then we got a sewage tank next to it. And I'm assuming that these little connectors here are possibly pumps. So what we might have is local pumps or connectors. So it looks like we've actually got a connector there as well, so that you can create a bit of a underground drainage system. It's a bit difficult to actually see that where it's just below the town name, but that does look like a connector. If we look on the right hand side, you can just see the top of the water distribution and the sewage there, but unfortunately we can't see into the town to see the connectors. It does go to show that you could probably build a fairly complex system of sewage disposal that way. Moving down to the next paragraph. Another idea regarding this is for smaller towns and situations where your facilities stop working correctly. We're considering adding new tasks to technical services such as distributing drinking water using water tankers and collecting sewage water. This may be used also for parts of a city that does not have sewage or water distribution network available, but it will be limited as we require the proper numbers of trucks doing the job. I'll be completely honest, my first impression is that this isn't something that strikes me that you should be doing with technical services, because my first question is, with technical services, you're dealing with the vehicles transporting something. I know when they clear snow, the snow magically disappears, but if you're delivering water, how are you going to be delivering the water? Is it the truck's just going to be driving up and down the streets, giving away hypothetical water and then collecting hypothetical sewage, which is then just disappears into thin air? Doesn't really fit well with what I would see, considering the lengths that the devs have gone to design the actual sewage system. My instinct, and this is very much my personal opinion, feel free to attack me on this in the comments if you want. I would say that for a small town, say you were starting out, that a well would be better. So what I would suggest is that there's possibly an option to have a smaller version of a well that has its own localized distribution center that may not have connections. Now, the another alternative I would say is that what you could have is, and rather than using technical offices, you could use distribution offices. So what I would think is that maybe you could sell water through the shops. Well, we will do it anyway. We will go into shops and buy bottled water. And then what you could have is a tankers that pick up water from, say, a well or water source somewhere, and then deliver it to the shop. So you'd have a normal distribution network similar to the way we distribute food and clothes at the moment. Now, the foul water side, I'd be inclined to do the reverse of that. If I go up to this picture here, this currently doesn't have a connection, but say if it was only a footpath connection, or so that it could still be placed, what my inclination would be is this could act as a septic tank, or alternatively that they add something which actually is a septic tank that's given a proper road connection. And then what you'll be able to do then is set up a distribution office so that the foul water trucks could go empty the septic tank and then take it to a place where it can be disposed, which could either be a water treatment plant or dumping it out into the river here. To me, that seems a cleaner mechanic than using technical services. It also opens up the possibility for the modding community, because, as I say, I can imagine that one thing that we're going to get very soon is actually a tiny little well where people could which actually looks like people pull the water up by buckets. There's also a possibility of an outhouse, but how that mechanic would work, I would have no idea. Open to suggestions, guys. What's your opinions? As I say, what I've just said is purely my own speculation, but it does seem to be a tidier mechanic than using technical services. Now we're just going to move on to the last section. The last section is about the current update, and now about the latest changes to the test branch. The productivity drop had severe effect on heating and power production, so we increased the production there in a way that even if you have low productivity, you will still have some reasonable output if you will fully staff the power and heating plants. This way you have better odds to survive another winter. Then there was an issue with crime for those starting with strict rules because the price of building managing crime is quite high. We added another modifier to crime, which is affected by the size of population. This allows players to play without necessity to deal with crime with small population. Only later on will you need police, court and prison. The threshold when crime is at full effect is when your population reaches 12,000. We also made the rail distribution office drive-through, and you will need to rebuild it first if you want to use it this way. Okay, now I'm assuming that 12,000 isn't going to be a cutoff. I'm assuming that there'll be a kind of sliding scale that when you've only got a population of 3,000 or 4,000, or like in my current Four Corners series, the population around 5,000, the crime rate is quite low and you can ignore it. And I think that would give, and I'm assuming that would give a period of time to get your crime and justice system up and running. And I actually quite like the idea of that because in a small community, crime would be very low anyway, especially if it's a small village, because you'd have what you could call local justice. And what I will say, and I am going to say that I know that the modders are already doing it, but I think the crime and justice buildings do have scope for small, medium and large versions, because one problem I've noticed with the prison is that the low capacity of the prison is already having a possible implications. That is an area that could be still refined. And then, so moving on to the final paragraph, there are also some fixes that you can find in changelog. Well, now we are going back to the normal schedule, releasing new report every 2 weeks, and we hope we will be able to finish this crime and justice update for you soon. But you'll be prepared for the challenge the game will be offer afterwards. Just do not forget these upcoming changes are huge, and no previously planned republic is guaranteed to survive. If you switch to new mechanics on, so play with that in mind and hold your biggest plans for the final release. Until then, enjoy your gaming and have fun while testing, and stay safe and tuned to the next report. What I'll do is I'll take this as an opportunity for anyone who follows the channel to give you an idea of what I'm going on. My current plans at the moment is to try and keep the 2 current series going until the water and sewage update comes out in February. And when the water and sewage update does come out, I'm going to try and take the 7 Crosses series past that, but I'm not expecting it to work. But what I'm going to do then is possibly do another start, but maybe something a bit easier so we can make progress very quickly. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you found it interesting. Any comments and opinions on what I've been talking about, feel free to chuck it in there and we'll have a bit of a discussion.